Okay, so for our next project, we're going to be creating Tic Tac Toe, and we're going to be doing this in jQuery and obviously using some HTML and CSS to style how it looks. And so these videos will show you how to construct this grid in HTML and CSS. And if we click on a square here, we'll see that we have an X, an O, an X, and so you'll see that it'll bounce back and forth between players. But what we'll do is we'll start off with getting this designed and then slowly adding in JavaScript to the point where then you will have this finished game. And so let's go ahead and try to win here. Let's go ahead and put a O here, and we'll see that player 2 won. And there's going to be a whole bunch of things here where you'll be able to customize this game, add some other logic. So right now we just won. Creating some sort of reset button would probably be a good idea, or styling how you display who won. But let's go ahead and take a look at what is involved in getting started with this. So what we're going to do is switch over to Terminal. I already have a completed project here, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. So let's go ahead and call this Tic Tac, and we'll go into that folder. And right now we're in a brand new project, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a index file. We'll do touch index.html, and we can then open this up in Atom. So now we have our index file here. And what we want to do is, let's go ahead and use Bower. So we went over Bower in the last class, but we want to include a few things that we're going to be using for jQuery, and as well as creating our X's and O's using some glyph icons. So let's do Bower init, and I'm just going to accept all of the standard answers just by hitting enter a bunch of times. And now you'll see we are good there. We will need jQuery, so I'm going to do Bower install jQuery -- save, and that's going to go ahead and fetch jQuery for us, so we can see that in there. And then I'm going to create a couple project folders for us. So in our Tic Tac directory, go ahead and create a folder for your CSS and for your JavaScript. And make sure that that JavaScript folder is inside of Tic Tac. So there we have now Bower components, CSS, JS, and then our Bower JSON file, which has all of our dependencies. So there you can see jQuery in there, our own Tic Tac Toe game. The description here is not required, but I'm going to go ahead and fill that out there. So now let's pop up into our index file. And so we're not going to be using Bootstrap for this. We're just going to use plain CSS. And what we want to do is we want to create a grid. So you can use a table for this and use a TR with 3 TDs. But what I'm going to do is actually create this in divs, because it does create a little bit of a cleaner and easier to style grid. So let's go ahead and start by adding our boilerplate HTML. If you're in Atom, you can type HTML and then hit tab, and that will fill in all of these for you. So then I'll go ahead and type in our title. We'll do Tic Tac Toe. And what we want to do is link our, I guess we'll have to create and then link our files together. So we do know that we're going to need a CSS file. So let's go ahead and do tictac.css. Save that. Let's also create a JavaScript file. We'll do tictac.js. And you can go ahead and close the JavaScript file for now. And then let's go ahead and, let me close this back one. Let's go ahead and link our CSS file. So we can do a link, hit tab. As you're learning, it does help to type these out in its entirety. But as you start to feel better about what these are comprised of, you can start to use those shortcuts that Atom gives you. So in this case, we're going to go into CSS and tictac.css. And same goes for our script. We have the ability to add our script source, which is going to be js/tictac.js. And then we can also go ahead and load jQuery, but we will want to include jQuery before we include our own script. So let's go ahead and do Bower components. If we open that folder, we'll see jQuery is right here. We'll do jQuery to open that up. There's a dist folder, which is the distribution of jQuery that we're using. We'll choose dist, and let's do the minified version of jQuery with jQuery.min.js. And now we should have a very blank page with our 3 elements loaded inside of it. Let me go ahead and close that. And let's go ahead and close out of our Bower components. So in our body, what we want to do is create a container that will surround our game board. So we can start off with a div, and I'm going to give this an ID of game board. And this is going to contain all of our rows and columns, but it'll also allow us to center it on the screen. So we'll go ahead and say that that's our game board. And the way that I'm going to build this out is I'm going to create a row and have individual divs inside of that. So we'll have 3 rows and 3 columns in each row. Very similar to how you would build out an HTML table, or if you're using Bootstrap, their row column format that they have for building out a grid would also work, but we're not using Bootstrap because we don't want to have all of the gutters between the columns that Bootstrap creates for us. It will add a lot of work that you would have to get rid of on your own. So let's go ahead and just create 3 rows. So I'll do row, end row, and let's just go ahead and create 3 of those. So that will create each of these rows, and inside of each row we're going to have a div that I'm going to call square instead of column, just because it'll make a little bit more sense as we build out our game. But each of these are going to be the individual squares that we see on the grid. So let's go ahead and copy these 3 squares and place them into each row. So at this point, if we were to load up our HTML, let's go ahead and open this one, we should not see anything. But if we inspect the elements, we will see that in our body we have a game board, we have our rows, and we have our squares. So that's where we're going to stop at for this video, and next we're going to add the CSS to make it look like a tic-tac-toe grid.